From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
Oh, God, can you ever imagine what would happen to the country if Lyndon was president? So many times he'd say it if there was ever a problem.
On the day her husband was buried, the former First Lady had written to thank LBJ for all his kindness, calling him, quote, Jack's right arm. And more than that, we were friends, all four of us. Almost a half-century later, we hear a different view, perhaps colored by Bobby Kennedy's resentments after the assassination, and her annoyance after this call from Johnson a month after her husband's death, 2 days before Christmas.
I hope that you are doing all right.
Oh, I'm doing fine, thank you.
Do you know how much we love you? You have a good Christmas, dear.
Thank you, the same to you.
Good night.
Hours later, Jackie learned LBJ was in fact showing off for a room full of reporters.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted.
We have J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, telling Lyndon Baines Johnson, the president, that the KGB has conducted their own independent investigation and determined that LBJ was the ringleader in John Kennedy's murder. We have documentation from the previous dump that French intelligence told Jacqueline Kennedy that they concluded Lyndon Johnson was culpable. We have Bobby Baker, right-hand man to Lyndon Johnson, saying to one of John Kennedy's top aides, John Kennedy will not live out his term and he will die a violent death. This is at the 1961 inauguration.
They sealed some documents up because they're too sensitive.
I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears, but we have no more urgent task. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man, and man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal.
Because I know that the deep state and the intelligence agencies tried to pressure him not to release these documents. After 50 years, the president absolutely did the right thing. The danger now, Alex, is not allowing the deep state to redact and hold back so much material in these 3,100 files that they become useless.
During the 3 decades of public service that followed his arrival in our nation's capital, time and again, he would step forward and keep his promise, even when the dark clouds of political crisis gathered over America. After a deluded gunman assassinated President Kennedy, our nation turned to Gerald Ford and a select handful of others to make sense of that madness.
In July, there was a more limited dump of material, Alex, and far too much of it was redacted and held back.
Get the fuck out of here. That thing didn't hit shit.
No, that's exactly right.
I've argued with this with people that have never shot guns, and they go, well, actually, it's proven. They broke bones. Yeah. When a bullet breaks bones, they get fucked. Well, it's a jacketed bullet. When a jacketed bullet breaks bones, it gets fucked.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's never going to get resolved. It's going to continue to live on because, A, it was such an important event in the history of the country, and B, I keep coming back to that same thing. People don't want to believe that really awful shit can happen sometimes.
Clear conflict of interest. The Warren Commission, it found single gunman. The Congressional Commission, you never hear about in the media, much bigger, much more lengthy, and part of it classified, said, oh, yeah, multiple shooters, deep state operation.
The greatest argument about the Kennedy, the 9/11 conspiracy theory idiots, the Kennedy assassination, Looney Tunes. We have more than 3 people know about a thing. One of them is going to be on the stand crying about it. The other guy's going to be writing a book about it, and maybe 2 guys will keep their mouths shut.
I think things were much less transparent back then than were today.
Yeah, but that's what's great about history. Eventually, if you're willing to wait around, to my view, if you're willing to wait around, every boring, grim detail will eventually come out.
I keep the crazy open. I open the door for crazy because I've seen some things. I leave it open. But I agree with you. Most of the time, I go with a simple door.
And here comes the president now. In fact, he's not in his limousine. He's departed the limousine, and he is walking. He is reaching across the fence, shaking hands with many of the people who have come here to see him. He is closely accompanied by Dallas police officers and, of course, the Secret Service. He is now shaking hands, and they are walking along the line of the fence, shaking hands with some of the hundreds of people who have come here to view their arrival.
November 22nd, 1963. President John F. Kennedy is gunned down in Dallas. A crushing blow to the country and a personal affront to FBI agent Don Adams.
Oh, it shocked me. It devastated me. And I thought to myself, what did I do wrong?
Adams is retired, but still can't shake the assassination or investigation by the Warren Commission.
Nothing but a bunch of liars.
The Warren Commission determined that Lee Harvey Oswald fired the fatal shots from the Texas Book Depository. But Adams says the real person behind the plot isn't even mentioned in their report.
I know for a fact in my heart that these things happened.
Based on his service with the FBI and years researching National Archives, Don Adams says at best the Kennedy assassination is a massive failure to communicate between federal agencies and then cover up. At worst, it's conspiracy to commit murder.
It's embarrassing because I love the FBI. It's a great organization, best law enforcement agency in the business. But we also have to face facts and reality that there are bad people in this world.
When President Trump said that there was nothing he could do, and it's not something that he would have said for legal reasons or constitutional reasons, because there are none. Essentially, I believe it's because the people that are going to be mentioned in those documents are alive today. But in particular, there is a relationship that I discovered, which was troubling, and that is an agent known to the French agents, George de Mohrenschildt, who was in the oil business, was closely associated with George Herbert Walker Bush.
Oh, I mean, George Herbert Walker Bush became the head of the CIA just a few years later. He was there using the family business as cutouts and offshore drilling rigs and Operation Mongoose and all of it, and he's in FBI files with J. Edgar Hoover with the assassination. So, of course, those are the names reportedly that are in the files, and it shows how real these files are, that they held them back. Just look at what they've already released. It's pretty bombshell.
Yes, but George de Mohrenschildt was the fellow that introduced Oswald, got him the job in the repository building.
Yes.
This is very troubling because this individual later on was one of the most interviewed during the commissions and the inquiries. And when he was supposed to testify in the 70s, he killed himself.
Listen, they had treason signs all over Texas. And in Texas, it was the day they killed him, there was people high-fiving themselves in downtown Austin and Dallas and places. So, I mean, everybody knew. See, I'm here in Texas, okay? So, I mean, I've been on airplanes with well-known politicians where they're just bragging about it. So, I mean, LBJ told his mistress the night before. I told her, I mean, look who they had in Dallas the night before. Nixon, all the bigwigs were here in a big mafia commission to go ahead because they'd gotten scared and backed off in Chicago and in Miami, and the teams had just refused to kill the president. But Texas came through, and that's what happened. And you're absolutely right. Those people were all involved. And for running part of the operation, George Herbert Walker Bush was promoted to the head of the CIA out of nowhere for helping carry out the operation to kill John F. Kennedy. Stay with us.